Joining us on the phone right now on Indiana in the Morning on WCCS is Joe Saylor, noted jazz musician, and was just recently featured as part of the featured band in the Disney release Soul. Joe, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Josh, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
It is a pleasure to have you back. Being a Indiana product, of course, I always like talking to the Indiana High grads that go on to great things. But I want to talk about how you started with music. From what I was reading somewhere, you started playing drums at the age of 3. So I would imagine that music, especially with your mom and dad being music teachers, was a
hmm
big part of your life growing up.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was kind of always there from the start. They always had music playing in the house, and they would both be teaching. My dad be teaching trumpet lessons, and just be having music constantly. And growing up in a church with a drummer on the worship team, I was always just my eyes just always went to that. And so I think from a young age, it was just always I was always banging on something, and that's kind of always how it's been for me.
Talk about some of the things that you did in high school whenever you were still learning the craft of music and things like that. I understand that you were involved in a jazz trio.
Yeah. So my two of my best friends, um, also went to Indiana High School. We were all in the same grade. We actually all went to the same church, and our families were friends. And me and Philip Keene, who was a bass player, we kind of started playing jazz together when we were 10, 11, 12 years old. And then our other friend Angelo Versace, he was a piano player, but he wasn't playing jazz. And so I thought, well, if we could get him to play jazz, then we could actually have a band, and I could have some people to play with. So I got him involved, and really our parents really helped us a lot, getting us private instructors and teachers and mentors to kind of help us grow throughout our teenage developing years. So that was pretty awesome to have, a steady band to play with growing up.
What drove you to jazz as a liking of music? Because let's face it, when I was growing up, I went from country music to pop music to all sorts of different kinds of music. What drove you specifically to a love of jazz?
Yeah, well, I think it was my dad, because my dad was a jazz musician. He's a trumpet player, of course, taught in the Indiana schools for over 30 years. But his main love was jazz music. He played in kind of like a 1940s style dance band on the weekends, and so I kind of grew up with kind of seeing that gigging jazz musician from a personal standpoint. And my dad just always had jazz playing around the house, and I loved it. And of course, because I was always banging on stuff, and he got me a drum set when I was little, jazz is the music that I was playing to for all those years. And so I think it just got in my head. And then when I was 12 years old, he took me to my first jazz club where I actually got to sit in. They have these things called jam sessions
Uh-huh.
where they would, allow, after the house band got done playing one set, they would take a break and then allow other musicians to come and sit in. And they started allowing me to sit in. And that's when I got a taste of really like playing with older musicians that were a lot better than me. And I don't know, something about it. I just loved it. I loved the feeling of it. I just loved it. And so kind of from the beginning, it was just jazz, all jazz for me.
Who were some of your some of the people that inspired you out in the world of jazz outside your parents? I mean, were there some professional musicians that you looked up to?
Yeah, well, my first and probably most important inspiration was my teacher, Roger Humphreys.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and he was a drummer in Pittsburgh. He still is a drummer in Pittsburgh. Um, and then other musicians around Pittsburgh, like Dwayne Dolphin, Luce DeLute. And then, of course, I started listening to music, and, I started idolizing these, great jazz musicians of all time, like Miles Davis and John Coltrane and all these types of people. So my world just kind of like, as soon as I met Roger, my world just expanded, you know.
Hmm.
And, the great drummers like Art Blakey and Elvin Jones and Billy Joe Jones and all these people.
We're talking with Joe Saylor, who is, of course, noted percussionist in the jazz world, and as we mentioned, he was part of the featured band in the latest Disney and Pixar release, Soul. But Joe has been pretty busy as well. You're part of. Are you still with Jonathan Baptiste's band, Stay Human, with the Stephen Colbert Show?
I am, yeah.
How's that been going since all of this craziness with COVID got underway?
Yeah, it's still going. I mean, we never missed a beat. Stephen, I think he did the first show right after, we all kind of had to quarantine and not come to the theater anymore. I think he did the first show from his bathtub, and then his living room, and yeah, I mean, so now, like the band, we're recording everything individually, remote from our own homes, which has been like a big challenge. But how long has it been since March? Like 9-10 months now.
Yeah, just about a little over 9-10 months. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, we're kind of getting the hang of it, but I hope we don't have to do it for too much longer, because I really, really miss playing with those guys.
I would imagine you did. Talk about being selected to be part of this featured band for the Disney film Soul.
Yeah, so, I mean, to be honest, I don't know a whole lot about it. All I know is that John was asked to write a lot of the music for the movie. I remember, maybe it was definitely over a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, I was hanging out with him in his dressing room, and he showed me this little short clip, like a Disney Pixar clip,
Mm-hmm.
and it had no music in it, and I was like, "What is this?" And he was like, "Man, this can be the new Disney Pixar movie," and they asked me to write the music. I was like, "Wow, that's really cool." And then I think we went into the studio in January, either January or February, and and he wrote these tunes. Actually, Philip Keane, who I was talking about before, another Indiana native, he's on the soundtrack as well.
Oh, that's awesome. Great.
Yeah, so it was me and Phil, Eddie Barbash, who was in the original Stay Human band, and a lot of other musicians. Actually, the great Roy Haynes, drummer, legendary jazz drummer who's 95 years old, played with Louis Armstrong, Charlie Parker,
Uh-huh.
You name it. He's on the soundtrack as well, which is really cool.
Wow.
So they kind of like meshed all of us together. There's a scene in the movie where, what's her name? Dorothea Williams, I think,
Mm-hmm.
she's the leader of the jazz quartet, and they're playing in a club. And it's like a vignette of all these scenes and songs. And you have like the songs that we play, and then the songs that Roy Haynes plays, and then it's really cool. But anyway, yeah, it was really cool.
So
to be a
sounds
part
like
of it.
sounds like a really great opportunity. And from what I've been reading about Soul, I haven't had the chance to see the picture yet, but from what I've been reading, it is really music centered about this guy who gets the gig of a lifetime, and now he has to try to find a way to get his soul back to him so that he can go through with this gig.
Mm-hmm.
But really, from what I've been reading about, it's about how one's passion can really drive somebody. And this guy, and the lead character, has a passion for music. Talk about it from your perspective, seeing the movie and seeing that positive message about being passionate for something.
Right. Well, I don't want to give too much away, but The movie really deals with, themes of kind of like what's important in life and how, your passions are great, but also if you get too consumed in them and they become your identity, it can become really dangerous, and that could actually ruin you. And so it deals with themes of the afterlife and before life and all kind of stuff. So it's a very interesting movie, and definitely deals with some deep themes for kids.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I say if you're curious, watch it for yourself.
All right. I think I will. I think I might have to get the Disney Plus subscription so I can finally see it. And
Yeah, yeah.
well, so Joe, what's next on the horizon? I know that you're still working with as you said, you're still working with the Late Show. Anything else
Yeah.
on the horizon for you?
Yeah, I'm going to go into the studio later next month and actually working on a solo drum project. So
Oh,
just me. So yeah, we'll see what that turns out to be. I'm still in the creative process, but so that'll come sometime, hopefully in 2021, and then hopefully we'll get back to the TV and really be playing in person, and that's pretty much what's on my musical horizon right now.
well, keep us posted about that solo project, will you?
For sure,
All
for
right.
sure.
Joe Saylor,
Yeah.
thank you very much for joining us on Indiana in the Morning. All the best to you. Happy New Year, my
Oh
friend.
man.
And
Yeah,
thanks
happy
again.
holidays, happy new year. Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Josh.